Welcome to the City Church Parent Podcast. So excited for today. We're going to be, I know for the past few episodes, we've been tackling questions that kids are asking. And this episode, we're actually going to do something a little different. We're going to talk through something that I think impacts everybody, but in a different way. And so I've actually brought on a couple people here to kind of really share some really helpful perspective. And so the topic today is actually special needs. What is the perspective of a special needs parent? So for those who maybe aren't parents of kids who have special needs, what is the perspective there? And then also maybe you are a parent who has a child who has special needs. What does it look like to find support? You know, how do you find support? We really want to help bring some light to that in this. And then also, we want to bring a perspective from a parent's perspective on how we can raise our kids to be loving and inclusive, and to include kids, to include other kids, and to just include people the way that Christ has called us to. And so I really believe that this is such an important thing to the heart of God. It's an important issue in our world today that I think everyone faces in unique ways. And so, we're going to jump into that. And so I'll real quick, let's introduce who we have here. This is Courtney Townsend and then Kylee Magee. And so if the both of you could kind of just share a bit about who you are and why this issue matters to you in your life. Who wants to go first?
I will. Courtney.
Yeah.
So I'm Courtney Townsend. I'm a physical therapist. I've always worked with the kids. And then I also have attended this church for, I don't know, a really long time. So the reason this is important to me, ever since I've been little, I've always just had a passion for people, but especially people who don't fit the standard quo. So it's just something that's always been a part of my heart. I love to help people feel connected, help them participate, and just have those friends and connections. Just a huge passion of mine. So,
and she's really good at it.
That's true. She is. Yeah. Awesome.
I'm Kylee Magee. I am a parent of a child with special needs, Toby. We've attended City Church for, I don't even know, 2022? Since 2022? Something like that.
3 years. Wow.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. We hit the ground running. So, but Courtney is actually how we ended up at City Church. We were moving, and I was like, I don't know where we can go that can take on, was my perspective of Toby. And Courtney's like, hey, my church actually has something in place for that. And I was like, what? That's really cool. I've never heard of someone actually having something that they didn't have to adapt for us before. And so she kind of just kept bugging me in my ear a little bit, like, hey, like, really, you can just show up and we've got you. We've got some things in place. And so we did. And we have been here ever since. So, yeah. I don't know what else I'm supposed to say, but
yeah. So, well,
I'm
actually,
a parent.
so I have, I guess a first question would be, you direct a nonprofit called Mighty Me that is honestly amazing, that does amazing things. It's honestly like a gift to our church and to the community. And so I would really love to hear about that. What is Mighty Me? What do you guys do? What is the point of it? All of that. If you could just kind of share a little bit more.
Yeah. So that was another thing that another parent actually started. And I was like, hey, I really need to jump in on this. This directly affects my family. So Amanda Dickinson had a nonprofit, and she's like, here's my vision for it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to do that too. We need a place to belong. And so the beginning of my journey, and this is, I'm going to give a little bit of background to how I got started there. Beginning of my journey parenting with Toby, I didn't know any other families that had a child with special needs in the degree that Toby has. I didn't, my connection was at therapy. Courtney, Toby's PT. So, but that was my connection with other people who had like any type of perspective of what our family was going through, what I was going through as a parent, Toby's experience, because it's just different. And so I actually connected with Amanda through a variety of things. There's a lot of really cool inner workings of how this network has come into place, and God has been very interwoven through that, and we're really blessed by that. But Amanda and I started talking about it, and I was like, okay, we're going to build up on the nonprofit side of Mighty Miracles is the larger organization, but Mighty Me, which supports, educates, and empowers parents. And that's really kind of vague. And so I was like, we need connection. We need community. How can we do that? We need inclusion. And so kind of what Amanda and I started thinking about was like, let's meet up with other families. Like, how better do you build relationships than to see someone regularly and get to know them in their heart? And so we were like, okay, so how do we go about doing that? Then we also came up with this idea about an Easter egg hunt. And so City Church has been instrumental in supporting Mighty Me with doing an inclusive Easter egg hunt every year, which kind of sounds bizarre, I guess, and very niche. But if you think about it, a child with a disability, cognitive or physical, doesn't have the capacity to fight for the Easter eggs like other kids at an Easter egg hunt. And I was getting kind of, I don't want to say angry. There was something stirring inside of me of like, my kid can't participate. I'm going to make this happen. And so Amanda was in on it. We involved you, and a variety of other partners. And we're like, okay, let's make this happen. And we've done it for this has been 3 years of our egg hunt that we had in April. So that's just so happens to kind of be a part of Mighty Me. And then we also approached Jeremiah after the first Easter egg hunt about doing some sort of regular meetup here at City Church. And the cool thing is, City Church, you already had in place people that were comfortable, accepting, and ready to take on our kids for childcare, for a time for us moms to simply have peace in each other's presence, and have our Mighty Me meetups, which we have every first and third Thursday now. It was Wednesday. Thursdays of the month here at City Church. And it's so nice to just go, okay, we can drop our kids off with these really great people who have an idea of what we're dealing with and can be like, oh yeah, bring your kids in. Like, they're accepted here. And us moms can go and just like decompress. Like, this is what we've been going on with our kids during the week. These are the health issues that we're dealing with. Have you dealt with this before? What are your resources? What are your, we encourage each other. It's really cool. It's built some really cool, long-lasting relationships.
Well, because those resources oftentimes like are not known, you know, and so like I mean, even here in Bartlesville, it's like somebody might kind of go years without really realizing what's available to them.
You don't know unless you know. Often in the disability community, and so it's kind of vital to build that village around you to support you, because I mean I think that's important in any parenting journey, honestly. Courtney and I have daughters who are a few months apart, and like we can share these are our typical children, share struggles that we're dealing with, like, hey, this is this new parenting issue, like, what are you thinking about? But then even to have so much of a niche of disability parenting, like, that's even more isolated. And it's like, how do you find those people? And so I have found so often being a child or a parent of a child with a disability that you don't know about this resource or this trick or this thing that is very helpful to you unless someone else shares it with you. And so it's vital to have that resource and that network.
Yeah, I love that so much. I think something that is cool, and we've talked about this a lot on this podcast, is like that part of even like when dealing with faith questions or just this different issues with parenting, it's like we have, as parents, I think it's massively important to rely on the resources that you have. And that in the church, that is the church, the body of Christ, the people of the body of Christ, to be able to rely on those resources and rely on others and, let others in and be able to do that. And I think that what's difficult for families with children with disabilities is that oftentimes it is hard to do that when maybe you feel like, oh man, are people actually going to understand me? And I think what's beautiful about what you guys are talking about, and actually Courtney, you mentioned earlier, you said the word participants. And I think that word is so key, that like when people are participants in the body of Christ, like we have no choice but to step into their worlds, to understand, to allow ourselves to do life together, right? And so kind of in an effort to do that, Kylee, a question I would have is, what are some things that people may not really realize about your experience as a parent of a child with a disability?
I don't know how to summarize that quickly.
No worry. Hey, do it. Yeah.
But
no pressure.
You hear that it's difficult, that there's obviously barriers and there's laws written around those barriers, and there's medical professionals who help accommodate those barriers. Courtney knows that very well. There's different things built into systems like the church that help, like City Church has built in city champions to be able to accommodate our kids, and it takes extra steps. I think that's the hardest thing, is that not only are you parenting, which takes it takes everything from you. I mean, it's a very sacrificial role. But it's even more so like you never get to turn off as a special needs parent. Constantly advocating, constantly worrying, constantly speaking for your child, sometimes moving their body for them, making sure their health is okay, making sure they're fed during the day. Because you're literally having to be their hands and feet for them. And a lot of people they realize it's hard, but they don't realize the mental load that goes with it, the physical load. Right now I have my ankle messed up and I'm having to rely on my husband to move my son around, which has been very interesting this week. But it's a very sacrificial role. It's a huge toll, and it requires a lot of gentleness, with dealing with those families, because they're very much in fight or flight a lot of the time. And it just kind of takes, I guess, it takes a lot out of you.
Yeah. Follow-up question that was totally not in the plan.
Okay.
You're going to love that.
Okay.
No. I'm trying to figure out how to frame this. Whenever you have people that maybe with good intentions want to show up in your world and support you, what are things that maybe are encouraging, and what are things that maybe add to the load or are discouraging, if that makes sense?
Yeah. It's really hard to nail down a specific, like, this is the right thing, this is the wrong thing. I think a lot of it just goes into the fact that you see the need, you see that struggle, you see that person.
Yeah.
There's a lot of vulnerability there. And you, without question, I mean, sometimes it's appropriate to question if you're worried about, there's a health need or whatever. But we love you, we love your child, and how can I help? Courtney is a fantastic example of that in my life. A lot of times, like when I first met Courtney, I go into, which she's my child's physical therapist, to say that one more time. So that's how I met Courtney. But I go into things just automatically apologizing for him. And because it's a lot. And Courtney's like, come on, let's go. Like, smile on her face, positive attitude, seeing his strengths, not his flaws. And why am I going to cry?
We always cry anytime we talk, yeah.
But it's just that personality, that attitude, that perspective. Jeremiah, you're really great at that as well. You're just like, come on, come as you are. There weren't questions. I don't have to explain myself why our situation is this way. That is what is most beneficial, most helpful. And honestly, like a sigh of relief to go, I don't have to worry for 2 seconds. Sunday mornings in church, I can drop Toby off and go, you know what? I don't have to think about it for a minute. I can just sit in peace in the Lord's presence. And so, that's what brings me the most peace, those type of approaches.
So Courtney, as on the other end of the spectrum, as a friend of not just Kylee, but other parents of kids with disabilities and unique needs and all of that, what does that look like for you? How would you encourage parents to be supportive in that sense? How do you approach that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I've learned is just taking the time to listen and just be open. Like with Kylee, when she starts apologizing, hey, you don't need to apologize. Tell me what's going on. I think just approaching it from a place of like, we've got this. Voice to me, what is your concern? But hey, look, they're doing X, Y, Z. Today, how can we make it to where Toby can do this or, whoever it is. That's the biggest thing I've learned, because sometimes when a parent has been through hard things, because there's been plenty of ones I've heard about that have had church hurt and turned away because their kid has needs, and people just don't know. It seems overbearing to accommodate when it's really not. You just have to switch your perspective. But realizing they might come off strong, the parent might, but they literally just want what's best for their kid. They're just trying to advocate, because their kid can't say, hey, this person wasn't nice to me today. Hey, I didn't like this at church. Hey, somebody pushed me. And they don't have those words. So I think allowing the parent the space to know this is safe. I understand where you're coming from. You're passionate but you're advocating. That has been the biggest thing I've found, is just giving them the space to feel.
Would you say it's mandatory to be an expert on all of the different spectrums of special needs in order to be supportive?
No, not at all. I think you just have to be open. You just have to, it can feel daunting because it's different. But what I've learned, because I went straight into pediatrics with no pediatric experience. Like, I've always worked with kids growing up, but I had no experience. So I learned really fast. As long as you're open, you can learn a lot. It feels different. It feels overwhelming. But most of the time, I'd say almost 99% of the time, the parents are more than willing to show you, hey, this is how I do this, or this is what my kid needs. And it's like, oh, cool. Now we can do this. So you don't have to be an expert. You just have to be open and willing.
I remember, and we've talked about this before. I've told you all this. When we started City Champions, our special needs ministry here, the early kind of days of it, I was super new to this as a topic, and I was terrified, to be honest. And what I was terrified of, it was messing it up, not knowing something and then, hurting someone and being part of that problem of special needs families experiencing church hurt. And I think what was really beautiful as I started to learn from parents of special needs kids was that it was exactly what you just said, that all that was what mattered was me being open and present. And I think that's really the heart of Jesus, right? When we read about Jesus, he was present in people's situations and people's contexts. He made a way. I was reading this morning I'm not going to get this right, in Matthew, I think Mark 9, I think. Anyway, you guys can look it up.
We're going to fact check you.
Yeah, please do. Jesus is speaking in this like crowded room, and like the house is like completely full. The doors can't be like, there can't be a way to get through the doors, none of that. And there's a paralyzed man that is laying on a stretcher, and his friends are trying to get him into the room just to be near Jesus. And they do anything they can. They like go to the ceiling, they go to the roof and just dig a hole and lower him down in front of Jesus. And I think that there is something beautiful about that sort of presence of like, where we don't know how to handle this, but we know who can, right? And we're just going to help make that way. And Christ isn't bothered by that. He's in the middle of teaching and doesn't seem to even be fazed. He's like, oh, cool. And that's an amazing thing. And we see examples of that. I mean, of Jesus weeping with those who weep. Jesus being present in people's situations and bringing healing, but not just bringing healing, bringing his presence in a internally healing way, right? And that's an amazing part of what it looks like to live with Jesus. And I think as we think about parenting, right, like with kids, some of this is really helping our kids understand what it means to live a life that's that way. I think kids are really good at that, oftentimes better than we are as adults. But I do think it takes some training. And so I think I'll put this out for both of you guys. How would you encourage parents to raise their kids, to train their kids in a way that is aware of how to talk around kids with special needs, how to act, how to be understanding? How do we do that?
That's a good question.
I experience this a lot. Not in necessarily a negative connotation. I think maybe some people can take offense to kids asking questions about something that's different, or just kind of staring sometimes. And I see that as an invitation to educate, and to show love and friendship, and to build community and relationships around that child. So a great example is Toby's getting older, his cousins are getting older, and so there's been some questions recently in our family of why does Toby not talk? Or why is Toby not walking yet? He's older than me. And we just, it's really simple when you think about, like, some people could be embarrassed by that, but I just go, he's not ready to yet. He's on Toby's time. This is how, and you could take it from this perspective too, this is how God created him. And that can be confusing for kids too, because there may be this kind of dialect, and it goes to the good versus evil type thing. Is disability bad? And we just have to go around the fact that this is how God created Toby. Some people, and especially historically, we see communities and even church history of, well, they're possessed, or they're there's something, the parents must have done something wrong, and this is their punishment from God. And I don't think that that's true. I think that we all have some struggle outside of, I heard the phrase the other day, east of Eden. We all, humanity was kicked out of the gates of Eden. And so we all have struggles we deal with, whether it be financial or body image issues, or past like childhood trauma, or we have maybe food insecurity, or there's just so many different things that we deal with in humanity that is heartbreaking, and it's difficult, and we all experience that. And this is another variation of that. It's difficult, but it's not outside of God's design that these children have a disability. It shows another facet of God's goodness in a way. We've talked about this before, us three. I have never seen such joy in my life than seeing it on my child's face, because he's very unapologetic about it. And other children, we all know who I'm talking about, but just joy, pure joy that I will never experience, because I have insecurities and fears, and we all have a filter, right? We develop that as time goes on, but kids with developmental delays, they're not developing that filter, and it is that joy that it's not happiness. I remember you were preaching on this a month ago or so.
Yeah.
Like there's happiness, but like I don't know if I've experienced joy to that level that those kids have. Peace. They're not worried about nothing.
They're just hanging out.
I mean, and then kindness. I mean, there's difficulties there too. Look at me going with the fruits of the Spirit theme. But just, when you get them big ol' hugs from them kids, sorry, I'm speaking in Oklahoman right now. Sorry about that. But when you get those big hugs from those kids, it's so unapologetic. Like you can't turn that away. But it's a different facet of God's character that we see in them that we should applaud and not be scared of and see it as like a negative connotation. It's not sin that's caused that. It's not something to heal or fix. It's God's own variation of his creation.
That's so key to teaching kids about, how to see each other, right? It is teaching that not every human is the same. Yeah. And that God in his creativity and his beauty and power, has given different traits to different kids. And I think that's the most powerful way to really teach that. And it teaches kids to see that and to see others as, oh man, like they're made in God's image. And so, then from there, it's like, okay, we know humans are made in God's image, and Jesus is bringing us, closer and closer to God's intent to Eden, right? And in that, and how we live in that is by loving God and loving our neighbor. And so what does that look like? And that's a hard thing. I think it's modeled first, But Courtney, I wanted to hear from you on this. How do you teach kids this?
No, I think that's very good. I think part of it is kind of just taking away the stigmatism that it's so different. I love when my daughter asks me questions. Like she'll come with me sometimes to Mighty Me, and she loves Toby. She loves Toby to death. And sometimes she'll ask questions, but most of the time, which again, she's only 3, like she doesn't see as big of a difference as you and I. Yeah. Like to her, and I think to most kids, like I think they get it better than we do. They don't expect, and maybe it's because of society pressures, but they don't expect perfection, where I think as you get older, you're like, this is how it should be. They're more welcoming. And so I think just, including her, or if he loves too hard, like Toby loves to give really big squeezes. And sometimes Amelia be like, oh, but she knows that he's just loving her, and just explaining it to her that way. Like Toby just loves really hard. Like that seems to make sense to her. And even like working with some of the youth that help with Mighty Me and stuff. Yeah. I love when they ask me questions because they're just trying to understand. I think when there's something different and we don't know, there's a part of us that just wants to try to understand where they're coming from. So I love when people ask questions and, hey, let's like give you a little bit of like medical background to understand why they're doing X, Y, Z. And here's some things you can do to help them. Like when Toby's going crazy, throw him in the crash pad because he loves that input. He's looking for something. He can't say, hey, I need to run. Hey, I need to have a squeeze or whatever. You just have to look for those cues. So I think it's just, again, being open and knowing it's okay to ask questions. I think you'll always run into people that might be a little offended by it. But what I've seen professionally in friendships and everything is if you're asking to understand, that's okay.
So that's that's a really big kind of difference, asking to understand versus asking just to ask, or asking from a place of relationship or interest in relationship versus just kind of just asking. And
or passing judgment even
passing
too.
Judgment. Yeah, I think being aware of that, allowing the Holy Spirit to kind of guide our conversations, and in that, when we do that, our kids see that. Like they see how we treat people. I'll never forget. There was it was during a service. I won't say the kid's name. We all know who this is. But there was he was in a walker and in one of our rooms, and there was another kid who just noticed that during craft time, he wasn't able to kind of participate like kind of normal. And so this kid went and picked up a craft sheet and put it all together, brought him a crayon and put it in his little bag thing attached to his walker. And I was just watching this. I didn't want to like, but I just remember honestly being like, wow, like that is like the most like simple but powerful example of what it looks like to just simply be there with people, to serve people, to love people and include them, to make them feel included. It's not complicated.
No.
And I think that's the beautiful thing, right? Like nobody's expecting anyone to be an expert on this. I mean, it's just you could be involved in working with special needs kids for 10 years and still be learning, right?
Yeah.
But if you can just simply love, if you can simply, serve and ask questions out of curiosity in order to help, then it's like, man, what an amazing thing that we can offer. And I love what you brought up, Kylee, about like that there has been over history, really, a lot of damaging theologies and damaging ways of seeing this. And I think we have to be cognizant of that. We have to remember that there is baggage, that this, and so with that, we need to be sensitive. We need to be, we want to look at kids, every kid, no matter what their unique needs or abilities are, right? We need to look at them and think through, like, first of all, the Imago Dei, the image of God, but also we need to look at every kid and just think through, what is it that I can do to really reveal Christ? And that's usually not going to include some of the damaging things that we've seen in the past, right? That it doesn't include saying, writing kids off as bad kids because of behavior that's caused by sensory seeking, right? Or when we're at a public park, and we see something, it doesn't mean judging, it means loving, right? And seeing the needs and helping, helping serve others. And it really just means of just in general, how we see others, how we think through, how we pray for others, right? Are we praying for just someone, a kid, simply just to pray for them, rather than praying for healing? I don't know.
Right.
I mean, let's just see them as not something to be fixed.
Yeah.
Right.
Kids are not needs to be fixed. They're people to be loved, right? And so with that, I think a good way to kind of wrap this up, unless either of y'all have other thoughts that we want to jump into, is I'll give you all one more chance. Is there anything, if you want to kind of sum up, what would you say?
I just want to add, like, a huge part of it too is just including and not separating. I think that helps kids realize this isn't so different. It's not about like, oh, this is different, let's keep them separate. It's let's bring them in. Let's let kids get around it and see, making it normalized. I don't like using that word, but
but very much so.
Yeah. So.
I love that. I think the inclusion aspect is really important. That's why I love that, like, in our kids' environments, like, we, even just by necessity, we have, all kids are in, like, their age group, or, in the age group that best fits where they're at. And that matters so much because it helps kids be able to practice this, be able to actually tangibly do this. And so, Kylee, before we ask the last question, do you have anything else that you would say? If there was one thing you wanted parents to leave with, what would it be?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. There's a lot of fear that goes around all of working with individuals with special needs because of the unknown. A lot of fear from the parents, bringing kids maybe into an environment they're not aware of. But I just hope, I'm not going to give people advice telling them what to do. I just hope that from this conversation that people can understand that this is an open space for them and to feel welcome here. I hope that it really inspires people to see our kids and to see that, this is an exciting part of our ministry to be involved with. And so just to see the need and to jump in, and for parents maybe that are hesitant to come to church because of all those things, come on.
Yeah,
So
I love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And we're definitely doing more of these. There will be some, because I feel like there's so much we need to dig into, including like resources. What does it look like in Bartlesville to get access to the right healthcare needs, things like that. Anyway, future episodes. But last question I have for you. I thought this would be a great way to end. What could you just share how you have seen and experienced God's goodness, character, and love in and through the life of your son, through Toby? Because I know I see so much of that in him, but I know, you have a front row seat. So could you just share that? I feel like that we need to end this with that. So.
That's another loaded question. Toby, it was a very humbling experience for me. I remember before I was even a parent, had any type of remote idea what that would look like in my life. I remember going, I could never be a special needs parent. Could never do it. I'm too selfish. I can't do that. And God said, buckle up. And it has been a very sacrificial role, but the joy that I have with that boy, he works so hard, and he is the kindest, most unique individual I've ever met. How do I see God's goodness and character through him? It's through, he's hard not to love. I mean, he is one of a kind and made perfectly for our family, and I would even say for this community. So, God knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to leave it at that because I'm going to cry. So
I love it. No, I love it so much. Yeah, that's good. I got allergies. So that's all that is. Wow, man, this is so good. Thank you guys so much. Just beyond this, just for everything, I feel like I've learned so much from the two of you. But parents, this is I think so important just to process, and I think if you know somebody who might benefit from this episode that might feel encouraged, share it with them. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next time.